Never make excuses. That's the number one rule. Excuses,
Yes.
excuse-free zone over here.
I thought you were going to say the famous excuses are like buttholes. Everybody has one.
God, Chelsea, of course you would bring that. I thought Matt was going to say that
belly
too.
buttons. I guess
But I
belly
thought,
buttons.
no, let Chelsea say it for him. She'll do it. Let her do
Yeah,
it.
she has a much better delivery than I do.
Yeah, but well done, Chelsea.
All right. We're going to go to the NBA now where Joel Embiid and the Sixers, they did get fined, as Jenks was saying, for that late announcement because that was really weird. Like, remember earlier in the day he was doubtful, then he cleared concussion protocol, but he was still listed as doubtful. And all of a sudden he was playing. It was really weird. But moral of the story, Joel Embiid has played the past 2 games in Philadelphia, and they won both games. So love it or fade it, Jenks. The home team will win each game in this series, meaning it will go 7 games with the Heat winning.
I can't believe I'm saying this. I think this might be a fact. And I would have said that after 2 games in Miami, I thought, oh my God, the Sixers are done. James Harden looks cooked. I said that on this show. Joel Embiid, we don't know if he's going to play, but man, Joel Embiid, and we shouldn't be shocked that he's made such a difference, but if he's going to play and now the Sixers have their confidence back, they look like a completely different team in Philly. I don't think the Suns and Mavs go 7, but I think this one does just because now the Heat have to adjust and they have to find a way to win games while facing Joel Embiid. They have not done that yet because those first 2 games came with Embiid not in the lineup. And if James Harden can continue playing the way he played in Game 4, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case. But if he can be somewhat of that guy that they thought they were getting when they made that trade with the Nets, yeah, I see this going 7. I'll go fact or love it.
I'll go love it too, /fact. Whatever label you want to put on this, because, yeah, the Sixers look like a much different team when Joel Embiid is on the floor. Yeah, duh. That's probably the most obvious response that I can give you because he was an MVP candidate for most of the year. Still arguably probably the MVP, even though Jokic had the touch better season on the whole. But here's the thing. Even when he's not scoring, he is still demanding the defensive presence down low that they weren't demanding when they don't have Joel Embiid in the ballgame because not only is he out, they don't have a good backup center. They traded away Andre Drummond. So the defensive attention is still on Joel Embiid, even when he's not scoring, even when he's not putting up 40 points a night. And he's going to adjust to playing in the mask. He is going to, probably play a little bit healthier with some time and some rest and recovery. So I know the Heat are probably the better team, but with Joel Embiid back, of course this is a series. He is one of the best players in the entire NBA and one of the most dominant ones, even when he's not at 100%. So yeah, I'll go fact or love it on this one.
I mean, you really see why Joel Embiid is a top contender for MVP this year. But despite that, I'm still going to fade it. I think the Heat are going to get back into their ways. I think they're going to clamp down on defense. Joel Embiid hasn't really been playing that great this series. I understand that he still demands a lot from the defense. He creates spacing, this and that, but only scoring 24 points and 18 points in the past 2 games, I don't think that's going to be enough for the Sixers to win another game or 2. I mean, they might force Game 7, but I could also very easily see the Heat winning the next 2 games.
I think it's more on the Heat if they play better. Because remember in the game before this one, they scored 79 points. It was one of the worst offensive games I think I've ever seen for the Miami Heat. And then this last game, they shot like 30% from the 3-point line. And this is a team that normally makes a lot of their threes. So they still have the potential to go out there and fire away from 3-point land and make this game not even close. So I think this is more about the Heat playing up to their potential more than the Sixers. So if we see the best effort out of the Heat, which I think we have not seen over the past 2 games, I think it's a lot tougher for the Sixers to contend.
Yeah, I completely agree. Though I remember Game 3, as you were saying, it was one of the worst performances I've seen from the Heat this year. They can only go up, so I'm holding out hope.
It wasn't the defense of the Sixers; they just weren't making shots.
Yeah, they couldn't hit a shot if their life depended on it. It was really, really ugly. Speaking of potentially ugly, the Grizzlies, they're going to be without Ja Morant tonight, more than likely, according to their coach Taylor Jenkins. But Memphis was outstanding in the regular season, 20-5 this year without Ja Morant. So love it or fade it, Chelsea. The Grizzlies can still beat the Warriors without Ja Morant in the lineup.
I'm going to fade it because we did a deep dive on the Grizzlies, and that one stat that we keep hearing, the Grizzlies were 20-5 this year without Ja Morant. Yeah, but who did they play? I was looking at those games, and there weren't a ton of contenders. I will say they had a winning record against the spread against teams over 500 during that stretch without Ja Morant. It is an especially deep team, and especially now that Dylan Brooks will be back from serving that suspension, but they're 10.5 point underdogs in this one. And the shocking thing to me was even during that stretch in which the Grizzlies didn't have Ja Morant, only once were they double digit underdogs. I will say they won that game outright against the Jazz, but we all saw what the Jazz were in the postseason. Pretenders. They weren't even close to as good as what people thought. So I think if the Warriors are firing all cylinders, not only do they win, they probably cover this number, but I ain't laying 10.5, but I definitely do not see an outright win coming if the Warriors are making their shots.
Yeah, I'm going to fade it because number one, it's the playoffs. And so Golden State is going to give you a different effort than we saw during the regular season. And also because of the schedule that you mentioned. Yeah, the Grizzlies are actually great without Ja Morant, but not in this spot. And now that Golden State has recaptured home court advantage in this series, or they went into the Grizz and they got the one they needed. Now they're back home. Now they look great. And even if Ja Morant plays or if he doesn't play, you have to wonder how healthy he's going to be. But if he does not go, this is a Warriors team. They keep talking about that championship DNA. And if you're facing the Grizz in a playoff series and you know you get a game against the Grizz without their best player, that's just blood in the water for a Golden State team who knows how to close out, that's motivated now. So they might cover the number. I'm not going to play this game because no way I'm laying 10.5. But to win outright, I just can't envision a scenario as deep as they are where they go into Golden State and win this game. So I would fade it.
What was the score of last game? I believe it was 142-112. And I believe
Crushed
Ja
them.
Morant. Yeah, didn't Ja Morant play in that game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I don't. I'm gonna have to fade this. I just don't see it happening. The Warriors are just much too good. They're gelling at the right time, and you saw what the Grizzlies looked like, and they didn't have Dylan Brooks in that game, granted, but like 30 points is a lot of points. The only way to bet this game is the over, in my opinion.
Right. And then looking at those regular season statistics, because we all know we're going to hear that stat a million times today. The Grizzlies are 20-5 without Ja Morant this season. But yeah, this is against one of the best teams in the NBA in one game at home in Golden State. So I think you've got to take those stats with a grain of salt.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And moving over to the Eastern Conference, where we had a great Game 3 on Saturday. The Bucks beating the Celtics 103-101. It's been the first two games weren't necessarily as close, but the spread on Game 4 is 1.5. So love it or fade it, Jenks. That spread is appropriate, and we will have a one-possession game again tonight.
Love it. I think we're going to see more of the same that we saw in game 3. These two teams have started to feel each other out enough where we're seeing two of the best teams in the NBA on the defensive end of the basketball beat each other up. We're seeing physical basketball. Celtics absolutely could have won game 3, but now I see both teams sort of tightening up here because this is such a competitive series and it's so physical. And early on, it was the Celtics adjusting to playing such a physical presence in Giannis. Then they figure it out. And now that they have, now we're just going to see this, this rock'em sock'em back and forth defensive lockdown type of game where one shot could be the difference. The Bucks are 1.5 point favorites. The line reflects that. And I think it's appropriate. So I love it.
I think if this game was in Boston, I would feel a little bit differently because don't we expect to see a better game out of Jason Tatum? My goodness, did he disappear in this last game? Only 10 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists, and just looked really erratic for most of the game. And this is a guy that I thought was going to win NBA Finals MVP. He was looking that good early in the postseason. So I do think we see a good bounce back effort for the Celtics, but still, like it's tough to argue with the points and the odds makers here, 1.5. It seems about right, especially with this game being in Milwaukee.
Again, I'm going to be the contrarian. I'm going to fade it. The Bucks were up pretty big against the Celtics. They had a nice comeback at the end of that game. I again, the game's in Milwaukee. It's not in Boston. I just see the Bucks winning by not a lot, but I see it by at least 5 points. I look more at the first two games of the series, and I look at that really weird game three with the weird officiating and was it a block or is it a charge? That's an argument again
Right.
that people are having. So I'm gonna have to fade it. I don't think it's gonna be that close. I'm still undecided on who I think is gonna win. I lean Bucks just because they're at home, but Jason Tatum is not going to shoot 21% again. So
Right.
it could very easily be close, but I'm going to have to say that this is probably more of a 2 to 3 possession game.
All right. Not much time left, but I've got one final question before we go to break. Real quick. Do we think the winner of the Bucks Celtics series wins the East? Jenks?
I'm going to say yes. Love it.
Matt?
I mean, if the Heat keep playing like they are, I'm going to have to say love it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's going to be the Bucks or the Celtics who end up winning the East.